Are we ready? Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. With the posted time having arrived and a quorum of members present, I will call the Finance Committee meeting for Tuesday, October 13th, 2020 to order. We have a special feature in our meeting tonight, which I assume maybe has brought the interest of all of you. Tonight we are going to conduct a feedback opportunity for our community on the conceptual plan presented by Wausau Opportunity Zone to redevelop Wausau Center. Because we are in a public hearing format, I will call on the registered speakers in order after the presentation. Each speaker will be allowed 3 minutes to articulate their position. There will be no back and forth between the committee and the public that is addressing the committee. We record public comment. It will be placed in the minutes from this meeting. And any letters and emails that we've received also on either side of the issue will be summarized at the end of the session and then included also with the minutes for the record for future decisions that committees and council will need to make. So, you know, when it's your turn to speak, I'll call on you, come up, state your name and address for the record, make your comments, and but we will not have question and answer and back and forth between any alders or city staff and those who've come to address the committee today. If at some point there's questions, you know, feel free to contact either alder people or city staff separate from this setting, and those conversations can happen. So with that, the first item on our agenda tonight is, and let me just make sure that, okay. First item on our agenda tonight is the mall redevelopment presentation from Wausau Opportunity Zone. I'd like to welcome Chuck Godorzi as our representative from Wausau Opportunity Zone. He's going to give us about a 15-minute presentation about the project. And then after that, we will accept public feedback, and we'll go from there. So welcome, Mr. Godorzi.
Well, thank you. And thank you to the Finance Committee and the rest of the council members, our citizens, the mayor. We've been working on this project for the last several months, and we've been kind of rolling it out, if you would, with the community and with staff. And so we're kind of pleased the way the thing has been evolving. It certainly is not an unknown reality that malls are dying. They were once thriving, but now they are closing, and Wausau is obviously no different. Faced with the reality, some communities have chosen to stand still, which in essence is just simply moving backwards. Instead of seeing it as an opportunity, they see it as a lost cause. Instead of seeing it and looking forward to create better opportunities for the citizens, they sit idle with no vision. And instead of embracing the opportunity along with the risks and the challenges, some would choose to run. In other words, they let opportunity and vision pass them by. But many of us believe that this is not Wausau. This is not our community, not in the past, and certainly not today. Instead, we squarely embrace the opportunity of revitalizing our downtown with a mixed-use development that incorporates residential, small retail, service and industry, corporate offices, hospitality, remote workspaces, and a variety of other amenities. Areas, if you could visualize this, for dining and coffee shops, for lingering, microbreweries for meeting friends, green spaces for congregating, public markets. And this is for all of our citizens, making Wausau a vibrant city where people like to live, to work, to play, raise a family, and invest. So we are looking at this as an opportunity, and we essentially are calling it unlocking, if you would, our potential. Many of you have this piece in front of you. Let me just highlight a few things. On the left side is what is represented if we leave the status quo of the mall as it exists today. And what does that look like? It looks like 385,000 square feet of retail, 10% of which is occupied. Property taxes that generate less than $100,000 a year in the near future, the loss of jobs, the loss of opportunities, parking ramps that only produce enough revenue, if you would, to take care of the lights. So we're looking at that side of the ledger and saying to ourselves, in short, what should happen to it? And for some, it would be, if we stay there, it would be a matter of boarding it up. But the good news is on the other side of the ledger. We instead, if you would, unlock our potential. And what does that look like? The potential looks like 800,000 square feet conceivably of mixed use, $80 million of new construction, the potential for millions of dollars of taxes, 44,000 square feet of green area, if you would, to go along with our 400 block, 95,000 square feet of property that's going to be given back to the city for 3rd Street, 2nd Street, Jackson Street, and Washington Street. We are revitalizing and reopening our downtown to connect our historic 3rd Street and its merchants and businesses, connecting to the 400 block, the art block, and indeed our river. And now, with the definition of this vision of the project, we can also look at the redevelopment agreement and look at how this partnership, if you would, this partnership commitment can move forward with some changes. If you look at item number 14 on the sheets again, item number 14 highlights some of the aspects of the change that could be looked at in terms of the development agreement. WAS, for instance, would surrender the future grant payments from the city for the amount of $1,962,000. WAS Inc. would pay $660,000 in 6 installments instead of a loan that was going to be forgivable. WAS would deed over approximately 95,000 square feet of property to the city. And we'd also surrender our purchase agreement on the Sears ramp, because that now is an essential part of leaving the development as it is. And at the same time, WAS would guarantee a minimum tax on $7 million if there is a shortfall in that revenue. So in essence, moving forward, we have the opportunity, if you would, to redo the development agreement and also to look at the opportunities that it presents. It also takes a little bit more in terms of redeveloping in a community. And there's 3 essential parts to that. These 3 essential parts are essentially this partnership that we have between the private and public sector. And without that, we can't move forward. We need philanthropy, people and foundations and companies that'll give of their resources. And we need a progressive city government. All of this working together. So when we do this, this ledger is kind of showing the investment that we're making as a community. First of all, on the left side of the ledger, you see some of the expenses, if you would, or the investments that the city has already made. Investments in the Sears building of $650,000, $1 million to purchase the mall, demolition and reconstruction of $3.5 million. One payment was made in 2020. And so those are all things in terms of how the city has invested. But at the same time, we're going to receive 95,000 square feet of land back, 1/3 the land, essentially $1 million in value. And now WAS is also going to repay, if you would, that $660,000. It's going to take some street construction, and we have $1.2 million set aside for that. But look at the revenue projections, if you would. If we leave the mall as it is, $75,000 a year in taxes, parking revenues of $45,000, $120,000. And then if we unlock, if you would, this potential, real estate taxes from 1.2 to 1.5, parking revenues from $300 to $350. And at the same time, Wausau Opportunity Zone continues to invest. They invested $2 million in the original purchase. They'll invest another $2 million in terms of operational costs, redevelopment, mall closing. They'll be now paying back a loan that was to be forgivable at $660,000, and they'll be guaranteeing some of the taxes at $350,000. And then we need our developers to come along and to invest in the property, parking structures, and startup costs of $85 million. So in essence, that's the investment that it would take in terms of bringing this back together in all aspects. And without these 3 aspects working together, it's pretty difficult for communities to move forward. So I'm just going to close with one thing, and that is, if you ask the question, who's going to win in all of this, these illustrations kind of illustrate that. It's really our people, it's our citizens, it's our companies, it's our families, all of our people who are going to be blessed by the fact that we have this new redevelopment area in our downtown. Now is the time. Let us not pass this opportunity by. Let us instead embrace it with enthusiasm, and let us unlock our potential. Thank you.
Thank you for that presentation. Now, in a public hearing format, the first people we'll bring up are those who have registered to speak. First person who is registered to speak tonight is Mark Craig. Is Mark Craig with us this evening? Give a look in case he's coming from another room. Okay, we don't see him. We'll hold that. We can always call for him again at the end. Okay. Jim McIntyre? And if each of you would state your name and address for the record, and 3 minutes then, please.
So thank you, Wausau Finance Committee members, for the opportunity to address you tonight. My name is Jim McIntyre, and I have the good fortune to be the CEO and president of the Greenhack Group, located at 1000 Greenhack Drive in Schofield, Wisconsin. I also have the honor to be elected the chairman of the Greater Wausau Prosperity Partnership, or as we affectionately call it, the GWPP. GWPP partnership was formed approximately 2 years ago and is a volunteer group of business and community leaders that would like to help the community on its path to economic vitality and prosperity. It's a group of business leaders representing the agricultural, construction, technologies, healthcare, food processing, insurance, banking, professional services, and engineering industries. We also have on our advisory board high school superintendents, the Hmong American Center leadership, president of the North Central Technical College, chancellors of both the UWSP and the former chancellor of UW Stout, representative from Marathon County Government, representative from WPS, United Way, Boy Scouts, the Municipalities Council, the Wausau River District, other foundations, and young professionals, amongst others. We are a diverse and dedicated team of business and community leaders that could not be more strongly in support of the small redevelopment plan that was put forth by Chuck and Waz this evening. This is evidenced by the signatures submitted on GWPP letterhead to the committee and to the mayor in the last few days. This employer group and others that have signed the letter in support of the WAS plan employs conservatively 15,000 employees in the greater Wausau area. A little bit about GWPP's four-year strategic plan. Our close-in initiatives are focused on talent, innovative companies, and placemaking. We believe the plan that WAS presents nails all three of these perfectly. And for the sake of time, I will focus on just one of those, talent. The one critical element in any organization or business, regardless of industry, is talent. Our community must do a better job collectively of retaining and recruiting talent. It's the lifeblood of any operation. Talent brings ideas, ideas start companies, and companies employ our residents. Employed residents like us generate tax revenue in many ways. We need more entrepreneurs like those who signed the letter endorsing the WAS plan. Where do you think this community would be without individuals like Jenny Hardell of REI, Gretchen Cray of Wausau Coated Products, Mark Matthey of Crystal Finishing, John O'Malley of O'Malley Cadillac and Honda, and John Peterson of Shooty Inc., or Bob and Bernie Greenhack? They had ideas that started and are built strong local businesses in our community. Imagine if we did not recruit or retain them in our community today. Where would we be? We need more community leaders like those who signed on to the letter endorsing this plan, including Shauna Yonke of Rooter Ware, Jennifer Wagner of Myron Construction, Janice Watson of the Boy Scouts, and Lori Wires of North Central Technical College. In addition to their organizational responsibilities, they are volunteer community leaders, and where would we be without them? In closing, our future will be defined by our ideas, and our ideas will be formed by the talent in our community. The WAS vision for the mall redevelopment will go a long way to allow us to compete in an ever-competitive race for talent. It is why the presidents and leaders of the top employers in our community are requesting your investment in the redevelopment plan. There is resounding support from the diverse community and business leaders asking you to invest in the downtown revitalization to make this America's best small town. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Next person who's registered is Tom Rodenz.
Good evening. My name is Tom Rodenz, 234-810 North 96th Avenue. I'm speaking both as a resident of Wausau, 57 years old, grew up in Wausau area, 1981 grad of Wausau West, as an employer in the area as well. So 1981 I grew up, all my friends that I hung out with, we all left, went to school, but none of them came back. And they left because they chose, they wanted to try to find a better community work-life experience. I left myself for about 10 years, decided, Wausau feels like home, I want to be back, and this is my home. So 1992 I came back, I had the opportunity to join an upstart organization at REI. My goal is to bring land surveying, turn it into a civil engineering design firm as well. We have since grown to 43 full-time employees, all high-paying jobs. And because we're in a niche market, we have a hard time attracting talent. There's not this huge pool of engineers sitting on the sideline waiting to come to work someplace, or land surveyors for that matter. So attracting people to come to the Wausau area has been one of our challenges for the last 29 years. It's a great place to live and grow up, but if you're not from the area, you're not used to some of the things that we don't have in a bigger community. And those things are tough to overcome. Some of the things that we've heard from previous employees or interviewees are that there's limited experiences outside of the office. The bars appear to be the only night scene, limited restaurant shopping opportunities, and poor internet. So our success has come through marketing our community as a great place to live, work, and play, as well as being centrally located. We've got Green Bay, Madison, Milwaukee, Minneapolis, all very near to us, and also the gateway to the Northwoods. We also feel that since the impacts of 2020 have hit us all profoundly, we feel that this is the opportunity for us to change how people look at Wausau, and as well as how people are looking at us. We're seeing the major metro areas starting to empty out. And maybe it's just a recent trend, but our hope for our company is that it's going to open up opportunities for people to come and look at us from outside of the area that may have not looked at a smaller community as they had in the past. I think a sense of place, safety, community housing options, and the environment around them will likely take higher priority for people making choices as to where they want to live. Online shopping, communication, entertainment, and remote working has just got an 8-month trial run, providing us with knowledge that we know we don't need to live right next door to our employer, that we can work a distance away. So these events, again, may provide us the knowledge we need to move forward, and our ability to bring people in from outside of the area to live within our community. The plan that, the redevelopment plan, really continues the efforts that we as a community have done for a period of the last decade. The 400 block, the Grand Theater, River Life projects, the YMCA Aspirus downtown expansions, the Whitewater Music Hall and Brew Works, unique shopping experiences downtown. the West Side 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Avenue streetscape improvements, the River Drive Farmers Market. All these things add the quality of life to things that we can market to talent and future employees and to our current employees to create the desire that they want to stay here. I know there's been discussion about the environmental concerns associated with the mall. There's some concerns that the city has taken on this liability. In reality, we look at it a little bit different in the fact that the city actually has this liability when they purchased the land beneath the mall back in 1980. So it's nothing that is new to the city. It's been a current liability. Our team and other consultants have worked with redeveloping properties such as this very cost effectively. We've done it in a number of different locations across the city of Wausau and other communities our size, and we're confident we can do the same in this location as well. So I've watched my children, 23 and 25, and I've watched their generation go through Wausau West, and I've watched the talent pool leave to go to college, and now I'm watching very few of them come back. And there's something that I would like to help to do to stop that brain drain. And I think having your support of the proposed redevelopment efforts of the downtown mall and creating a unique environment that's going to keep people here and people bring talented workforce to our community would be a great thing for our strong community. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Next person who has registered to speak, Matt Rowe. And then also community members, after you've addressed the community or the committee, if you feel that you'd like to exit the room to, reduce your exposure to all of the rest of us, we certainly would not be offended if people are coming and going while others are talking. So don't feel that you're obligated to stay. You're welcome to, but you certainly don't need to. Welcome, Mr. Rowe.
Thank you. Thank you, members of the Finance Committee, for the opportunity to address you today. My name's Matt Rowe. I live at 1709 Tall Oaks Drive here in Wausau. I'm also the vice chair of the Greater Wausau Prosperity Partnership, which we heard a little bit about from Jim McIntyre. 23 years ago, I moved here from southern Wisconsin, actually from Minneapolis, but grew up in southern Wisconsin, and joined the Reuter Ware Law Firm, where I remain today. So I'm going to keep this short because I think this can be simplified pretty easily from my perspective. The city has committed a little north of $1.9 million towards the mall under the current development agreement terms. That's an investment in a rapidly depreciating asset. It's no longer an economic draw for residents or visitors. I think we can all recognize that. So what's the choice before the Finance Committee and ultimately the City Council? Well, we can throw this good money after bad, or we can take this pot of money over here from TID 7 that stems from a pretty wise investment that the city has made and reinvest those resources and turn this rapidly depreciating asset into something much more valuable. What is that something? You see some pictures up behind you in the materials. A lot of that will change over time. But, if you boil it down to the simple math, $1.9 million towards a rapidly depreciating asset that the city's committed to, or take some other dollars from a different pot and deploy those as a reinvestment towards something that's going to be much more valuable over time. I think there are some pretty simple themes that most people could get behind. I would hope everybody could get behind, and that is exchanging these dollars, as I said, for towards appreciating assets. In exchange, what is the city going to get? A commitment to property valuation growth over time for new value at the mall site. And downtown Wausau continues its renewal as the anchor of the best small city in America, able to attract both visitors and new residents. One last comment. You'll hear some of this from others as well, but and Tom Redenz mentioned this briefly. Reuter Ware's been here a long time. We're trying to attract young professionals on a regular basis, annually, quite frankly. These are the kinds of projects that make that task easier, and failing to do these kinds of projects makes our job much more difficult to attract people, whether they grew up in Wausau or grew up somewhere else like me, attract them to this community that we all love. So thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Thank you for that. Next on our list is Kevin Porter. Welcome.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak here. My name is Kevin Porter. My address is 131 Wisteria Lane in Wausau. I'm here to represent myself and the 88 other young professionals that want to have their voices heard in support of the WAS development plan. Personally, I'm a boomerang kid. I moved back to Wausau 2 years ago after being out of the area for the last 20 years. I grew up in Rothschild, played youth hockey leagues at Marathon Park, was actively involved in scouts. I moved out of state in middle school and moved just north of the Boston area, but I still had family here in the Midwest, so I chose to live in Madison after college and lived in Madison for 10 years. Whenever I would come to the Wausau area to visit family, I grew increasingly disinterested in ever living here again because of how it paled in comparison to Madison. The initial reason why Wausau ever crept up on my radar to live here was because my banking career was expanding to commercial lending and economic development. Wausau stood out as an exceptionally underdeveloped community. However, I had a great childhood here, so I knew that it could be an ideal place for me to be closer to my family, raise family of my own, and play an active role in the growth of the community. When I first moved back here 2 years ago, I was shocked at the lack of apartments available downtown. The only apartments available were for low-income tenants, and as such, I had to find housing in a different location, not downtown. I immersed myself into networking groups with the Chamber of Commerce and the Emerging Leaders Group with the United Way. The more involved I became with my peers, the more common I heard the same stories as my own and the disappointment of no apartment living downtown. Being involved with the GWPP, we're seeing the difficulties that our employers are having with retaining talent here, let alone the effort it takes to recruit someone here from out of market. The city has spent significant resources on several studies of the downtown area and a development of a formalized strategic plan. As can be seen from reviewing peer markets elsewhere and identified in our own studies, Wausau needs to develop the mall and the riverfront in order to prosper long term. I'm a committee member of the United Way's Financial Stability Impact Team, also the Residential Development Committee for the Wausau River District. Yes, there's a shortage of market rate apartments, but also we can clearly see a need for low-income housing as well. I'm a member of the Real Estate Investors Association, the Apartment Owners Association, and also a board director for the Builders Association. Undoubtedly, there are very weak and damaged relationships between the City of Wausau and these organizations from many years past. Similar to myself, the ranks of these organizations are being replaced by like-minded young professionals. It would seem that we have a grand opportunity in front of us here to improve these relationships and collectively work on creating solutions for low-income housing projects. With us, we bring vigor, positive attitude, and high expectations for what we want our community to be because we've lived in larger cities. We want our community to grow. We want Wausau to be the best small city in America. We want to provide aesthetically pleasing low-income housing projects, but we don't want to prevent the redevelopment of the mall in order to prioritize low-income housing first, especially when we have the opportunity to attract a whole new population of work-from-home employees currently living in larger cities. As has already been happening, failure to develop the mall will result in further decay of the property. This will result in continued relocation of residents and the rapid development of the surrounding communities such as Weston, Cronenwetter, and Mosinee. There's no shortage of jobs availability here in Wausau, but there's definitely a shortage of housing availability and the underdeveloped placemaking that would attract the young professionals needed to fill those jobs. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Michael Straub.
Hi, my name is Mike Straub. I am at 1227 Plummer Street in Wausau. I guess I'm going to be the person that speaks on opposition to this. I don't speak on opposition to the plans as they are or the need for change. I do agree with that. I have worked at the Wausau Mall in the past. My wife and daughter work here as well. My problem with this is the allocation of money towards this. I know that the alternative to this was probably not a good situation. We would have been under Rialto or some other organization that was just going to keep on seeking money from us and taking it out of the community. So I agree with that part of it. But what I don't understand is why we need to give more money for the demolition. Mr. Gadorzi has been in this community for some time. As far as I know, he's probably one of the most popular developers in the area. how he doesn't understand how much it would cost to demolish this mall is beyond me. With 50 years in the industry, I can't figure that one out. Nothing against you, sir. I know you do good work, believe me, but I just don't see why the city needs to put up any more money in this at this time. The other problem that I have with this whole thing is I've talked to a lot of our aldermen, and I was told by them that this was a nonprofit organization. WAS was a nonprofit organization. That made me a little bit better in feeling and giving them money. But now that I found out the other day that they are a nonprofit organization and most of the community feels that they are a nonprofit organization, that leads me to change my tune on things. I don't agree with it anymore. Why we're giving them more money? They got property. They got for $1. They got the other property for $1. They got the building where we gave them $1 million for it. So I guess my question is, why more? I was also told by one of our aldermen that they plan on asking for more money every step of their playbook. Now, Mr. Ekman told me the other day that that is not true, so I hope that's going to be the case. I watched the streaming video quite a bit. Last one, the joint committee, I watched it 4 different times. The one thing that I did hear was that nothing was going to happen with the parking ramps, neither one of them. If you look at the picture up there, the one parking ramp is gone. I know it's underneath, the other one's still there, and I'm just trying to figure out where that went to, first of all. Second of all, the purchase of the mall was done with the understanding that it was purchased as is. If I go to an auction and I buy something, it's as is. I can't go back and ask for my money back or for compensation for any of that. So I'm really confused with that part of it as well. The last thing, this has to do with our city government. I watched the videos, obviously, and I've watched them several times. What bothers me is that Mr. Gadorzi gets up in here and he monopolizes time in front of this group. And when it comes time for somebody else to speak, there's not enough time there. The other thing that bothers me about it is that in one of them, there was comment that we were going to hear from Mr. Gadorzi, and then after he was completed, we would hear from anybody that was in favor of the initiative. What about the opposition? And that was said by one of our alderman chairpersons. As chairman, you're not really supposed to have a say in it. If you do have a say in it, you're trying to sway the other elder people, and that's not right. That's part of parliamentary procedure. That's part of Robert's rules. And I've watched it several times happen, and that's not the way it's supposed to be. I know we have some young aldermen on the city council, and they don't understand what they can and can't do. So I think some education on that part needs to take place so that they are aware of what they can and can't do instead of just going along with what happens. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next up is Tracy Rieger. Okay. Then next on the list is Dave Ekman.
Madam Chairman, committee, thank you for your time. My name is Dave Ekman. I'm the president and CEO of the Greater Wausau Chamber of Commerce. I reside at 1000 River Drive, unit number 300. Tonight, had some prepared comments here. I'm going to set them to the side. You're going to still hear some comments, I believe, from others in this audience, but what I want to try to do is paint a brushstroke, if you will, of where we're at today. 2 years ago, this community and stakeholders, a lot of companies, put dollars towards the economic development plan where we hired TIP strategies. About 2 years ago, same time, right now, John Roberts, John Karras from Austin, Texas, came into this community, and we walked the downtown. And during that time, we also walked the river. They saw them all. And from their expertise, they said, this is a trouble spot. It came clear. It came clear in March of 2019 when they developed the plan, introduced it to the community, that 3 things about the plan came to fruition. We got to focus on talent. Our companies require talent. Our communities require talent. Wausau requires population growth. Innovative companies and placemaking. When you put them all together in an economic development sphere, placemaking is critical to the success of this community, of Greater Wausau, Central Wisconsin. Placemaking is at the heart of it. We got the plan in March of 2019, and it articulated as a placemaking strategy: 1, save Clark Island; 2, redevelop the Wausau, acquire and redevelop the Wausau Center Mall. Critical to our future. Lo and behold, a little bit over a year ago, the mall comes on the market. Rialto's getting out. The city, the Judd S. Alexander Foundation, the Dwight Linda Davis Foundation partner to secure a strategic piece of property. Now, why is this important? Critically important is the vibrancy of a downtown, of a city the size of Wausau. If we are to compete in this world, this post-pandemic world we are in today, with other cities like Green Bay, Eau Claire, Minneapolis, we have opportunities. This property is repositioned as a vital piece of real estate downtown. Is very important, not only the city of Wausau, but Central Wisconsin. It's part of our placemaking. We're located at the crossroads of commerce, 2939. Rib Mountain State Park, Granite Peak, recreational outdoor mecca. We have so many opportunities, and this is part of that. We have quality K-12 post-secondary education requirements, safe and affordable communities requirements. In an economic development picture, this property is very strategic to attract and retain innovative companies, to attract and retain talent. Short story, I'll close real quick. 2007, I shut my business down in Rib Lake, Wisconsin, a dining community, to the extent that I dislocated my family out of Rib Lake, moved to Wausau, Rothschild proper. Why? Because this community had it going on. This region had it going on. Last year, my wife and I sold our house in Rothschild because I'm a boomer. My kids off to Madison. We moved here to Wausau. Why? Because we want to enjoy the downtown living and the vibrancy that it's offering. I live in River Life now. My daughter today, who works for Madison Schools, is living with us in River Life because she can, because of the pandemic. She wants to be back here. We need to build a reason for our youth to stay here and come back home. Thank you.
Thank you.
One other thing, please.
Sure.
I have 2 books, and I'm going to leave them with the council
Okay.
to read. Our Town. 2 people traveled around the country doing stories about communities like Wausau to take the ownership and build a future. Read them. It's really good. It's real short stories. You'll enjoy it.
Okay. Thank you for that.
And Madam Chair, you'll also find for the record the support letters from the Chamber of Commerce, the partnership, affiliated businesses, as Jim McIntyre said, totaling somewhere about 15,000 employees.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Next up is Dennis Smith. Dennis Smith. Welcome.
Well, thank you. In case you don't know, my name is Dennis Smith. I live at 3516 Polzer Drive here in Wausau. And for 4 years, I set up there. Is this a good project or is it not? I think it is a good project. The mall, something has to be done with the mall. And if we need to build more housing to at least get the millennials out of their parents' basement, I'm all for that. However, there's some troubling aspects about this. the city made its initial contribution, a substantial one, and now we're back for more. Now, my question is, and I'll keep this real short, and I promise I will actually keep it short. How many times are they going to come back to us? What is going to be our total investment before this project is complete? I think somebody needs to crunch the numbers on that and let us know. Like I said, I'm not against this project. Something has to be done, and if the research is done and we need more housing, although it's springing up like dandelions around town, and we need more retail space and we need more office space, I find that difficult to believe, but then we should do it. But first of all, we should know what the city's going to be in for as this thing runs its course. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for that. Sarah Etten? Welcome.
Welcome. Greetings, Mayor and Council. My name is Sarah Etten. I live at 121 Eau Claire Boulevard here in Wausau. I moved to Wausau about 3 years ago today. I'm on the opposition of this. I am also currently employed as a store manager at Famous Footwear. I have worked at the mall for the last 3 years since I have moved to Wausau. I realize I'm one small voice in here, but I think I can speak for many of us store managers and employees at the mall who have not been able to attend today due to working. When Waz purchased the mall, the news clip on Channel 7 News on February 4th, 2020, they stated their intentions was to revitalize the mall and the downtown, not hidden intentions to demolish the mall and tear it down. Our mall is a beautiful mall, and I travel around to a lot of places. This project, if Waz's privately funded group of investors, and I believe that they should be footing the bill for this and not adding more onto the taxpayers' money. Our property taxes here in Wausau are plenty enough. I believe Mid-America as a whole dropped the ball on recruiting new tenants and providing and creating mall events for the public. Seems they just wanted to keep pounding one more nail in the coffin to get rid of the mall. Looking at today's economy, that sometimes what can't you buy online? Family fun experiences and sometimes gas and groceries. Possible mall tenants should have been stores like a Festival of Foods for a grocery store in this side of town. What about the idea that movie theater or perhaps a family fun roller skating rink and game arcade where people could come down and enjoy the children's museum, shop, eat at the restaurants downtown? Filling the tenants with stores like Ross, Marshall's, Burlington, Home Goods, Sierra Trading. Those stores don't do a lot of online shopping as their selection is pretty scarce as to what they buy from their vendors. So it's like kind of like the hidden bargains. For me, if our mall is a dead and dying store, then why was my store, Famous Footwear, up 18% in sales last year and the #1 store in our district of 23 stores? We have customers that come from Michigan, Marshfield, Antigo, Stevens Point, Medford, and Rib Lake. Closing the mall is going to force these people to go shop in other towns like Eau Claire, Appleton. And it's going to support their towns for gas stations and restaurants. Having a full mall of tenants would create that tax revenue back for the city. A lot of the stores in the mall have not heard from their district managers if we're relocating. The city should have given it a Boy Scout try to help these stores relocate and stay in town to keep people employed and folks continuing to shop local. I know I would really appreciate to keep my job. Thank you for your time and listening.
Thank you for coming. Last registered speaker is Mark Craig.
Good evening. Thank you for a few minutes of your time. And, you know, I have a long history here with Wausau Center, and many of you know I came to Wausau in 1996 to manage Wausau Center Mall. So I have a lot of compassion for that property, and if it could be saved, I would be standing here before you to tell you that's exactly what could be done. But in all the efforts of 25 years of redeveloping downtown Wausau, I have come to the conclusion it cannot be saved. And I understand some of the comments have been made tonight and the skepticism and cynicism. But I can assure you, every one of you, that the group that we're working with WAS is an incredible group of people. They have their heart and soul into saving our downtown and making all of it work. I went around today to every business on the 300 block of 3rd Street, right at ground zero of what we're talking about, all the little shops, and unanimously they supported what's going on. Before COVID, they were struggling. COVID has certainly impacted their lives and their businesses. They're looking for a ray of hope. And 2021 is going to be a tough year. We're going to have a tough winter. This is the time to set the stage for future development. And yes, it requires a partnership, a public-private partnership, which is exactly how we got to where we are today as a community. We did it together. And we cannot, as a local group, do what we're trying to do, which is clear the site of 6 city blocks. Both parking structures remain in place. Home furniture remains in place. We put streets back in and we demall just like they're doing across this country. This is the time. We cannot miss this moment. We have so few times in our history as a community where we can change the direction where we're going. This is that time. 40 years ago, people in this community were trying to figure out how to save our downtown. We moved Highway 51 to the west in, 1967, 68? And all that traffic is now where the interstate is, right? And during the 70s, the leaders of our community tried to figure out how to save our downtown. And they went to Cleveland, Ohio, and met with JVJ and the Jacobs Group and begged them basically to come to Wausau and build the mall. And in 1983, it opened up. Well, that time has passed. Every 40 years, we have to recreate our community, and this is the moment. And your leadership, your vote tonight is going to make a difference. So we're asking you to support what we're doing, have some faith, and yes, it's a little bit of a leap of trust, but who better to do it with than Gary Friels from the Alexander Foundation, Jeff Stubbe from the Dwight and Linda Davis Foundation, Chuck Adorsey, who we've been competitors for years, him on the west side, me downtown. I love this man. I have watched this guy. He is a class act, and I'm telling you, what we're trying to do is steer a direction for the next 40 years, and we hope you have your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. Mark was the last registered speaker. Also into the record, we want to indicate that we've received correspondence. We did welcome correspondence by either email or mail for people who were not able to attend tonight or who did not want to participate in a large group indoor gathering. With that, we have received letter endorsements from the following stakeholders. Stakeholder businesses in the 3rd Street corridor. We've received support from Merle Norman Cosmetics, The Ugly Mug, Jalapenos, Tundraland, Politos, Cheryl's Framing and Gallery, HT Cobblery, The Lamplighter, Isaac's Fine Apparel, Compass Properties, and we've also received indications of support from Chow and Lemongrass. Separate from that, we received a letter of support from a young professionals cohort that I believe Mr. Porter mentioned. That does contain 82 signatures of young professionals in our area. We received an email in support from Chad Kane from Wood Trust Bank and the YMCA Foundation Board. We have received a letter of support from Brian Bailey, the Executive Director from the YMCA, also indicating support. We have received an email from Aaron and Fred Heider at 1306 Spruce Street, indicating that they do also have some questions for how this plan would unfold, but are interested to see what the future holds. The hard copy and the text of all of these messages will be incorporated into the minutes of this meeting and have been made available to all of the council members. So those will become part of the public record. In the event that you're interested in reading them, they're also being uploaded to the meeting packet for this meeting. We've received a letter indicating support from Tom Frank from Greenheck. We have received an email opposing the project from Lawn Growth at 1038 South 7th Avenue. We've received an email opposing the project from Thomas Block at 3928 Riverview Drive in Wausau. We have received an email supporting the project from Carrie Ann Conawty. We have received letters of support gathered by the River District. Those include individual letters from the Marathon County Public Library, Evolutions in Design, the Wausau Museum of Contemporary Art, Polito's Pizza, the Marathon County Literacy Council, Maximo Realty, Shepherd and Schaller, River Life Wausau Apartments LLC, the McCartney's Photography Studio, La Prima LLC, The Local, CPR Cell Phone Repair, and Prain Dental. And so all of those letters will also be incorporated into the meeting packets. All of those letters indicated support for the project. We have also received sign-on letters of support from the Downtown Revitalization, or from the Greater Wausau Prosperity Partnership Group, from the Greater Wausau Chamber of Commerce, from other members of the business community, and individual letters of support. Individual letters of support were received from Derek Heikkinen, Executive Director of the Metal Manufacturing Association, John Pierce, the Real Estate Director from Home Furniture, Matt Ort, the HR Director from Merrill Steel, Dennis Deloy, the President of Associated Bank, and Tom Frank also reiterated support from Greenhack. Separate from that, we've also received feedback from Michael Loy, the CEO at North Central Healthcare, Jennifer Hocken, Chief Operating Officer at Security Health Plan, Paul David, the Assistant General Counsel from Aspirus, Dawn Bernatz, Director of Corporate Communications from Church Mutual, Jeannie Warden, Vice President of Student Services from North Central Technical College, Keith Hilt, Superintendent of Wausau Schools, Jack Hugendijk, the Hope Life Center, Al Lancaster from WSAW, WZAW TV7, Nicole Williams, Director of Sales from QPS Employment Group, Sean Wright, the Executive Director of the Performing Arts Foundation, Ted Fox, CEO at Ameriprise Financial, Cornerstone Advisors, Corey Tomczyk, President of IRO Shredding, Recycling, and Consulting, Joanne Drager, VP of Business Banking at Incredible Bank, Jen Neuenhaus-Hardell, President and owner of REI Engineering, Scott Katnock, President of People's Bank, Rich Poyer, President of Church Mutual, Matt Haywood, President and CEO at Aspirus Hospital, John Skaug, Chairman and CEO at Marathon Cheese, Mary Jo Johnson, CEO at EO Johnson and LockNet Managed IT, Will Sue, the President from Sue's Ginseng Enterprises, Chris Godorzi, Director of Property Development at Godorzi Companies, Paul Lepre, the Vice President in Business Development from Myron Construction, Lori Wires, the President and CEO of North Central Technical College, Bernie Patterson, the Chancellor of the University of Wisconsin Stevens Point, Robert Meyer, Chancellor Emeritus at UW Stout, Pete Veliska, the Board Chair from Wausau Events Incorporated and Ansay and Associates LLC, Janice Watson from the Boy Scouts of America Samoset Council, Jeff Sargent, the Executive Director and CEO at United Way. We've also received endorsed support from Mark Matthey, President of Crystal Finishing, Scott Hogan, President and CEO at UMR, John Peterson, President and owner at Schutte Incorporated, John O'Malley, President from O'Malley Cadillac Honda, Matt Jameson, the CEO at the Boys and Girls Club of the Wausau area, Stuart Etten, President at Reuter Ware, Jay Neuenhaus, President and owner of Northwest Petroleum Service, Bill Reif, the President at Wausau Coated Products, Bill Shines, the CFO at Wausau Coated Products, Gretchen Cray, National Account Manager from Wausau Coated Products, John Close, the President at LineTech, Tammy Schrader, the Marketing Manager at LineTech, Tim Parker, the President and CEO at the Community Foundation of North Central Wisconsin, Sue Nelson, the Programming Officer from Community Foundation of North Central Wisconsin, Jenna Weiss, Director of Marketing at the Community Foundation of North Central Wisconsin, We've received support from Carla Lodoltz, Director of Donor Services from the Community Foundation of North Central Wisconsin, Craig Uhlenbrock, the Senior Vice President for the Wausau operation of Myron Construction, Jennifer Wagner, the Project Administrator for Myron Construction, Joelle Kocha, Project Administrator at Myron Construction, Toby Sontag from Myron Construction, Stephanie Rodenkal, Project Administrator at Myron Construction, Tanya Brewster from Myron Construction, Tyle Tremmel, also at Myron Construction, and then Heather Stoffel, Mark Burt from Myron Construction. So all of those records will be posted with the minutes of this public hearing. Do we have anyone who has entered the room that would also like to offer public feedback that was not previously registered? We want to make sure we give everybody the opportunity. We do have a little time left if there's anyone who has not yet commented who would like to.
Good evening.
Thank you.
My name's Tom Killian, 133 East Thomas Street, Wausau, and I'm also the city councilman for District 3, in which the small property resides. I thank the committee and city for holding this public hearing, because how can we really generate legitimate public policy without involving the public in a meaningful way? But on that note, I would like to register some concerns about the process to date. Despite large sums of public money coming in early, meaningful public input only arrived at a late hour. And secondly, I think good governance hinges as much on the public's trust in our processes and their transparency as it does on financial computations and ROI projections. In this regard, the city of Wausau has had serious image problems for some time. While I would argue that most Wausonians are proud of Wausau, the same can often not be said about feelings toward the nature of public-private endeavors, which mark the history of our town, nor the opaqueness that often accompanies them. And it looks as though once again we have put the priorities and blueprints of a select few ahead of a process and outcome that truly includes all of our citizens and does so in a representative way. While you take a look at the demographic indicators of residents in and around certain areas of downtown, please ask yourself, have we sufficiently allowed meaningful participation of all residents from all backgrounds and across the socioeconomic spectrum in a manner that allows them equal participation in activities we essentially subsidize with millions of taxpayer dollars? I had the great pleasure of listening to the questions and input of constituents and other Wausonians during a recent public input session. And as you can note from the video of that session, and some of you attended, thank you, while many citizens felt positively about the vision presented by Mr. Gadorzi, they overwhelmingly opposed the nature and level of public funding associated with that vision. And this feeling throughout the general public is rather pronounced and clear. I do applaud the efforts of the coalition in this room tonight, and I always would, citizens and businesses who get civically involved, but let us not forget the history of our town and similar coalitions that occurred with the CBL deal that ultimately was abortive a few years ago. So getting this input from the citizens and getting this feeling throughout the general public that this funding mechanism and the level of tax dollars is just not supported by the community. I intend to represent that and therefore will not be supporting this. And another reason is that there's been vague, if not non-existent, commitment from the private sector when it comes to funding or concrete development details. And we have been told at the public input session that this would likely not be the last time we are asked to open our coffers for this effort, and that does not even include potential unknown environmental costs, which probably could have been dealt with more openly. Thank you for your consideration.
Okay, thank you. Okay, with that then, we will close our public hearing. So thank you everyone tonight who has offered feedback either by mail, by email, or in person. We certainly appreciate your community engagement and taking the time to offer us feedback this evening. If anyone wishes to exit the room, we'll pause for a second before the committee takes up the rest of its agenda. We have 4 additional items of business that we need to take care of. Obviously, you're welcome to stay, but certainly not required to, so. Okay. So the Finance Committee will continue with the rest of its agenda. Item number 3 on our agenda tonight is discussion and possible action on a joint powers agreement with Marathon County regarding E911 and NG911 systems. And who has that item? Let me flip over to the packet here.
Mary, who did that come from?
We've got to get to the end of it. Okay.
Good evening, Lisa. This is Ann Jacobson speaking.
Thanks, Ann. If you want to walk us through this item.
This is a joint powers agreement with the county, and Deputy Chad Billop reached out to me about a month ago and just said we want to redo this agreement, but we've already entered into it, and it should be annually automatically renewed. So I reached out to Scott Corbett, and we added wording in paragraph 2 that said this agreement is really just intended to reaffirm the intent of the parties to annually enter into this agreement, which is very short and references specific state statutes to say that if an emergency service vehicle is dispatched in response to a 911 request, such vehicle will render services to that person needing service regardless of whether it's operating outside of our normal jurisdictional boundaries. So I think it was placed in the packet, I'm not sure, but the agreement was effective back in 1993. That was approved by council, and because it's an intergovernmental agreement, I think our procurement policy requires council approval. Another version was passed, I think, 2008, somewhere in there. That one did not get council approval. So technically, this is really just the same thing we've been doing since 1993, but it's a recommitment because there's been such a staff turnover to try to annually renew this and file it with the DOJ.
Okay. And so with that, this item also indicates that it does not have a financial impact or fiscal impact. Do we have a motion then to approve the agreement? Motion by Watson. Is there a second? Second by Martins. Further discussion or questions? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Ms. Ryan, was that? Yep. Okay. Ms. Ryan is an aye as well. So that motion carries. Item number 4 is discussion and possible action on a lease agreement with Wausau Avenue Winter Farmers Market, LLC, for the property at 180 East Wausau Avenue. You've got a memo in your packets that outlines the process. It looks like the Winter Farmers Market was looking for a home, and we have a site that we own that would be useful for them. And so you've got the terms of that in your packets. Any questions for Mr. Fitzgerald on that proposal at all? If not, is there a motion then to approve that use? Motion by Herbst. Is there a second? Second by Watson. Further discussion or questions? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed? None are opposed. That motion carries as well. Item number 5 is discussion and possible action on authorizing the Wausau Police Department to accept a Victims of Crime grant of $300,000 per year for 4 years, an amount not to exceed $1.2 million, to continue their victim response unit. You've got some supporting documents in the packets on that one as well. And as you know, we love to accept grants. So that flows through here, though. So do we have a motion to accept the grant? Motion by Watson, is there a second? Second by Ryan. Further discussion? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed? None are opposed. That motion carries as well. Item number 6, discussion and possible action regarding a budget modification and a $15,000 funding request from Catholic Charities Homeless Shelter. And welcome the mayor.
I don't know if you need me to talk about this a little bit. Tracy, I think, is here to maybe chat a little bit about this too. So the last few months, we've been scurrying around as a community trying to find a new space for the warming center because we need to have enough space for people to be socially distant. And finally, this last week, the Methodist Church was like, we have got a space. We can, space out, I think, up to 50 people if we need to. So it's perfect space, but we need a shower and I think hookups for washing machine. So that's what this budget modification request is for. I just want to let you know that when I did that survey about what the council's priorities are when it comes to budgeting, addressing this homelessness issue was one of the top priorities of this council. So this is an opportunity for us to support that in a meaningful way. And I don't know if Tracy wants to say anything else. She knows a lot more about this than I do.
Okay, come on up. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Mayor Rosenberg actually spelled it out pretty well for us. We are currently located at 540 South 3rd Ave, and as you may or may not know, we are working with about 900 square feet in order to house 25 homeless individuals per night, and that's just not sustainable in our current pandemic. So by the grace of God, literally, we were granted the opportunity to use the space in the basement of the First United Methodist Church from November 1st through April 30th, housing up to 40, actually, individuals, but we have room for isolation if we should need that, should anyone become symptomatic while they're staying with us, and we will be utilizing some space too for the free clinic to operate as well to provide health care to the homeless as well. So like Mayor Rosenberg indicated, we do need to install a shower in that space, and it's a very old building, so there's some demolition that needs to happen and restructure that needs to be built. In addition to all of that, we need to increase security cameras, washer and dryer space, through fire inspection, additional lighting and fire exits. So unfortunately, the cost of moving over there is mounting up a little bit. So we are hopeful that we can have the support of the city to utilize those funds for this purpose.
Okay,
thank you.
Excellent. Any questions or comments about the proposal? If not, is there a motion to approve? Motion by Herbst, second by Watson. Further discussion? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Okay, that passes unanimously as well. And the last item on our agenda is discussion and possible action on a budget modification for emergency management planning. Welcome back.
Hey, thanks. So I'm new around here, so the only way I can get into the budget is to modify. So thank you for allowing me to talk about this. So as you know, this year we had the pandemic, and we do have a county emergency management office, and they do a lot of planning around, specific types of incident. They can help us with that planning. Now, at this point, it's a lot of boilerplate stuff because we're one municipality out of however many, and they've been very great to work with us, but we can do better together with them. And so this budget modification is for $10,000 to support a more robust planning operation. Police chief, fire chief, deputy fire chief, the DPW director, and I kind of all got together and sent over to the county a giant list of what we want to accomplish as far as emergency management planning, and that comes down to maybe another pandemic, school shooting, shootings, things like that, different emergencies that we know that we need to be prepared for, and that we can get this extra level of support for and collaboration with the county. So we're still kind of working back and forth on what's accomplishable for this type of payment, but really confident that we'll be able to do a lot better proactive planning if we support that process.
Okay, excellent. Anyone have questions on that proposal? If not, go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, I just got a quick question. Is this funding in a... I'm feeding back, so. Is this funding in addition to what the emergency planning, what the emergency manager does with the city every 2 years? Because I know that there's an annual or a biannual emergency plan that the council usually ratifies. So is this in addition to that?
Yeah, it's above and beyond. That's the goal anyway, to address several emergency management plans beyond kind of that I don't know, I don't want to call it boilerplate because I haven't been involved in it yet, but this will help us get a little bit more strategic.
Okay. We do need a little more robust effort there, I guess I would say, as a member of the Public Health and Safety Committee. Emergency management is kind of at the forefront of our mind in a number of things we do. We work a lot with police and fire, and and public health, and so it is inspiring to see. I think in the past, whenever we've networked with our emergency management personnel, they're great to work with, but we do adopt a lot of cookie cutter type stuff because we've not really experienced enough of the situations in prior years to realize where the gaps were. And I think now, in light of a number of recent events that we've seen maybe in the last 5 years, there are so many more things that we could do to make sure that we coordinate together and work well together so that when the call comes, there's coordination and not chaos. So I, as a committee member, are happy to support this one. Do we have a motion to approve this funding? Motion by Martin, second by Herbst. Further discussion or questions? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed? None are opposed. That motion carries. That is the last item on our agenda. We have moved Common Council to 7 o'clock to account for extra time for the public hearing. So we have a gap between meetings, so we have some time, but Common Council will begin in this chamber at 7 o'clock. So I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Absolutely, sure.
I sort of should have asked it with the warming shelter when that topic goes on. Are they going to keep the one open on 3rd too? They can't staff both? Okay, just curious.
Okay. And so with that, I guess I'll just offer a quick communication. Starting Thursday night, that begins our series of 2021 budget workshops. So we have meetings scheduled for Thursday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So this is the time when we have a lot of finance meetings close together. Materials will be going out for that first one. And so that said, that first one is a lot of presentation and PowerPoint type content. So any of our members that are comfortable viewing the meeting on WebEx, you're certainly welcome to do that. I mean, that's one where we have limited participation, where we really dig into the nuts and bolts of the budget. That happens next week, because then we look at our supplemental requests, we look at where we're at with our cost to continue, what we're looking at for mill rate projections, and then that's where we start to really hammer things out. So just some reminders about that. I think we've posted agendas about all of those now. And so then also for the public, if they want to watch our budget process from beginning to end, Thursday starts it. So with that, I'll accept a motion to adjourn. Motion by Herbst. Is there a second? Second by Watson. Members in favor signify by saying, did you have a quick comment, Marianne? Sorry.
Thanks. I was just going to say that we scheduled that meeting to start at 6:30 because there was transit and historic landmarks or preservation. Both of those have been canceled now.
Okay.
So we could move it up earlier in the evening, or we can just leave it the way it is.
Well, we do have the entire committee in attendance. Committee, would you prefer to start an hour earlier, 5:30?
Just for Thursday?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, not for the... I sort of like the consistent time.
Deb is nodding. What do you guys think? Do you want to stay with 6:30 or do you want to?
6:30 is fine.
Okay. Okay. It sounds like they want to stay at 6:30, so we'll keep our posted time then, and that is the time that we also communicated to the public, so we hate to make a shift on the fly that would confuse them as well. So.
And Madam Chair, so you said the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday would be good to attend in person if we can.
I think for the committee, it's always helpful. I think because, with only 5 of us on the committee, we can kind of spread out in here. We don't take up quite that much, shoulder-to-shoulder space. But I think that the dialogue that happens in between us and the networking that happens as we're trying to, give and take some of these things, it's a little bit easier in person. That said, it certainly can be done on WebEx. There's, we're going to anyone that's available on WebEx is going to have the same amount of time as anyone else. So it's not a big deal. We also encourage the other council members who aren't on the committee to also join us by WebEx if they're able to, so that they can see kind of how we get to this finished product, so that when we get to the council floor for our public hearing, that we all are a little bit familiar of, with why we made the decisions that we've made. So, but anything else? Communication? If not, we had a motion and a second on the floor to adjourn, so we'll adjourn. Members in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. And then Common Council starts in here in 45 minutes. Thanks, everyone.